I'm at Brands Hatch with the amazing John Archer. He's promised me he's going to make a car appear. Question is, where is John? Where is the car?
Ta-da!
There it is. That's magic.
Was uphill on the way here.
Welcome to Celebs Doing Stuff That They Like, the series where I interview celebrities while doing something that they enjoy. In today's show, I'm joined by comedian and magician John Archer. John is a brilliant performer who often supports Tim Fine on tour, and in 2011 he was the first magician to trick Penn and Teller on the ITV show Fool Us, earning him the chance to open for them in Las Vegas. John is a massive racing fan, so we brought him to Brands Hatch for a performance racing day. First, he had to be shown the ropes. Once the instructor was confident John wasn't going to kill himself or anyone else, they swapped seats, and John whistled round the track, tearing up the tarmac and making the instructor wish he'd worn his brown trousers.
Cool, so how's your day been, John? You enjoyed going around the track?
It was incredible. To be honest, I thought it's going to be a bit fast. It'll be, but it was just the cars are just immense. The power and also the control. The first 5 or 6 laps, you're just learning that you can do ridiculous things with the car and it'll be all right.
Yeah.
And getting over that fear of, in your own car, you think if I try and stop in this distance, it'll never do it. But yeah, incredible. And then the guy I had teaching me looked like he'd just come out of nursery school. I don't know how old he was.
He was young, wasn't he?
He was young, but he was phenomenal. He drives for VW. He drives in VW races apparently. But yeah, so I'm just thinking this kid's, incredible.
I'm very impressed. He didn't feel sick or anything. Because we did a shoot last week with Nikki Kelly.
Right.
I was in a Land Rover, 4 minutes, and I was green by the end of it. I had to stop and get out, and then there was this end bit with the Land Rover. I couldn't do it. I was just green.
Do you know what? There was right at the end. Bobby, my instructor, said, "I'll get in now and I'll drive a race lap at race speed, as I would do it." And then it was literally sort of, oh my word, it was phenomenal. And I mean, I didn't feel sick, but I just thought, well, yeah, you just sort of that queasiness of being thrown around very, very quickly.
But well done, your shirt is not green.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Filled it in. And do you ever drive that fast on your own? Let's say you're driving back late from a gig, you just want to get back. Do you ever just...
Do you know what I used to? I used to drive fast, and then I got to that point where I had too many points on my license, and I had to go to court, and I'd have this barrister plead that I needed my car for my living, and so in the end they didn't ban me. Because I just accumulated. It was just this series of speed cameras doing 35 in a 30 zone, and it just all totted up this one when nearly 20 years ago now. And thankfully the judge sort of said, you're in a job where you're just going to always get caught by cameras. You need to learn to, look out for them and drive slower. And he gave me 6 points. So I had 15 points on my license and a big fine. But that's all well behind me now.
Don't you kind of start?
Well, I was on 9, and what happened was I was on the M. I mean, it's not an excuse, but I was on the M4. It was 50 mile an hour roadwork section, and I thought the roadwork section had ended, and I accelerated up, and there was a speed camera, and it hadn't ended yet, and that was what took me up. But of course, it doesn't matter what you tell them, I got done. I got done, mother.
Done.
It's out in the open.
You see, the reason why I never go fast is that 2 reasons. One, I'm really paranoid of other drivers.
Yeah.
I come from the mindset.
Paranoid of me.
People like you, exactly. So I just think other drivers are pricks. And whenever I'm on a drive and it lasts for about an hour or longer, I always see someone doing a maneuver which depends on the maneuver of the person they're doing it to. So like someone will cut in cross of someone, and if that other person...
Do you suffer road rage?
No, because I think I get a lot of road rage towards me because I need like 2 clear lanes before I change lanes.
Right.
So I will hog the fast lane until I've got complete, the next 2 lanes are completely clear. So I don't suffer from it. I think I probably cause...
You cause it. You are the cause of road rage.
Quite a lot, yeah.
All right. And it's mainly about lanes and pulling in front of people. That's what it is.
Yeah, and that's it. And trusting other people. And
you don't have that problem here. There's no lanes.
No. The other big problem with me is that I'm a real tight ass when it comes to petrol. I got an eco car, and I know that if you drive 80 compared to 60, you're just burning a lot more.
Yeah. Do you know what? My dad's like that. My dad's 81 now.
Yeah.
And he really loves to think he's getting the most miles per gallon out of his car. And of course, he's got one of these cars that gives how many miles per gallon he's got. But he has it in his head that the way to get the best out of the mileage is just literally about the revs he's doing.
Yeah.
So he doesn't use his speedometer. He just uses the revs. It has to be something like, if I stick to 1,500 revs, son, that's it. And I'm just going, oh, Dad, put your foot, there's people behind you, I'll give you the money for petrol, just go.
Yeah, I think me and your dad would get on quite well. And I know that you got interested in magic at a very early age with your uncle showing you a card trick, but your life took quite a different path early on, didn't it?
Yeah. I had an interest, but I didn't do it. It was just one of those things that I thought, oh, that's interesting, but wasn't a passion, wasn't something I did until later in life. But yeah, I was sort of more. Hobby-wise, I was more interested in music, and work-wise, I had various jobs before I actually got into performing as a comedy magician. But yeah, music and singing was my initial sort of introduction to show business.
So you did singing, like karaoke or something?
No. Just in a band. I used to, sing. Well, I played guitar. I played guitar since I was 8, so I played guitar, and then I got in a few bands and a few duos. It was just that thing of teenage bands, never really doing gigs, but practicing all the time in a garage. It was that type of thing. So that was my hobby, really, sort of music and guitar and.
Did you ever do the thing where you recorded a demo on like a cassette and you
yeah,
sent it places?
Cassette tape and that, and it was even before you had sort of multi-track recorders that they've got now. It was literally recorded on a cassette, and then somebody learned that if you could record on a cassette and then play that cassette back and record something on another cassette and sing along with it. It was really, really sort of antiquated. Yeah.
And what was the name of your band?
Do you know, I had various bands and a couple of duos. Some of them never had names as well. I was in a duo called Fresh Fish and another duo called Take Two, and some bands. Do you know what? I can't remember them. I don't think we ever got to the stage of coming up with a name for ourselves.
Sorry, that's my first.
Oh, that's great. That's probably my agent saying they've got a good for me performing in a band.
Probably. And like myself, you did a degree in product design. How did comedy and then magic and then music and then design? How did?
Well, do you know what it was? Magic was at the end of that story. So it was music and performing was my hobby.
Yeah.
Job-wise, I was good at technical drawing and design and that sort of thing, and maths and physics I was quite good at. So I got a job as a draftsman originally. I was a draftsman for 3 years, working for a company that made living platforms for oil accommodation, oil rigs basically. And then that was 3 years doing that apprenticeship, and I was doing an ONC in engineering, learned to become an engineer. I was going to become a mechanical engineer. Then I decided I wanted to be more artistic because I was creative. So I packed it in, did a foundation course at art college, and it was during that foundation course, did you do an art foundation course ever?
No, I just plugged myself into it.
All right. Well, I did the foundation course really just to find out what I wanted to do, and that included everything from fine arts, ceramics, sculpture, photography. And it was during that course that I realised I could merge the artistic side with the mechanical side and do product design. So then I went to London, to Central School of Art and Design, which is now Central St Martin's in sort of Holborn, and did a product design degree, which was a mixture of the engineering side and that skills with the art. So designing how products look really, and the visual aesthetic side of them. And that's really when magic started to get serious, because there was a magic shop right across the road from the college called Alan Allen's Magic Spot, and it was run by a magician called Alan Allen. He sadly died last year, but he was a lovely, quirky, weird character. And if he was friend, you could call him Alan. I didn't know him so well, so I had to call him Alan. But anyway, Alan Allen. It's a joke. So anyway, Alan ran this little shop, and I started going in just to buy jokes, really to use in my presentations. So if I'd designed a new lamp, like a bedside lamp, I'd buy a light bulb that lit up on his own, so I could sort of do that in my presentation, and make my presentations fun and interesting. And then as I got to know him, he was one of these guys that if he knew you liked magic, he'd throw everybody else, and he'd throw everybody else out the shop, he'd lock the door, and he'd say, look at this. And he really was passionate about magic, and he had really strong opinions on how it should be done, and he wasn't afraid of telling you if something was rubbish. But as I got to know him, he showed me a couple of tricks, and I bought, one off him. It was a silly little coin trick, and then another little card trick.
This is all while you're doing your degree.
This is all while I'm doing my degree. So those were the days when you got a grant. So I was getting a student grant and basically spending it on magic books and magic tricks.
Yeah.
And so I was getting educated in magic at the same time I was getting educated in sort of product design. To the point that when I finished, I went back home. I didn't want to stay living in London, really. I sort of missed my family and things. And I went back home, joined a local magic society up there, which is Middlesbrough Circle of Magicians, which is where Paul Daniels came from. And another great comedy magician who's on the circuit, Pete Furman, he's from up there as well. I joined that society. Pete was sort of a young lad. After I'd been in there a while, Pete came along as well. And that's when it became a passion, and I started adding it to my little performances I'd do. So when I was singing and playing guitar, I started adding jokes, and it just eventually took over. I started doing it on my own, music and magic, and then the music went. And then just recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, I started putting music in with the ukulele, so I do a few silly ukulele bits.
Fantastic.
So it's all just. Sometimes you can't plan how your life's going to go. Well, you can't. You can think you can, but you never know what's going to happen. So it's a weird little route, and so here I am now.
Do you remember the moment where you said, right, design is not for me? Because I remember for myself, I went on a diploma in industry, which means you go out and you work on work placements. First one was with Martin Baker. They do all the ejector seats that were working on the Eurofighter. Yeah. They gave me a big lump of foam. They said, right, go into the workshop and make the ejector seat. I had no bloody idea what to do. I spent about 4 hours. I broke the bandsaw 3 times, got sacked. Yeah. And then I got another placement very quickly. I was designing plug sockets. So I designed one plug socket for 3 months, completely cocked it up. And after I got demoted to fire exit signs, I was just doing, the men that do that. Yeah, and that's what I was doing for the next 6 months. And that's how I knew that, design wasn't for me. Did you have a similar thing?
No, I knew even before that. I sort of knew when I was doing my degree. I got probably about halfway through my degree. I thought, it was mainly the idea, I just realised that even though it seemed very glamorous, I was going to be sat at a desk for the rest of my life. And I thought, I don't want to do that. I want to be out and about doing things, and I want a life that's different every day. I don't want something that's the same every day. And also, all the design then was happening in London, and I'd probably quite happily live in London now. I would happily live in London now. I don't, but I would. But then I just was adamant I didn't want to live in London, so I thought, really.
Why was that? Was the family?
It was just too busy and hectic and crazy and expensive, and I quite like the Northeast. I like the people in the Northeast. I like the countryside that's up there. And family and friends. I still had loads of family and friends, so there was lots of reasons really why I wanted to go back up. So it was those reasons really. I want a job that's different every day, and I want to be sort of back up north.
Okay. So you're doing a bit of design. You say that's not for you.
Yeah.
You're getting more into the performance side.
Yeah.
Where the heck did the whole police thing come into it?
The police thing was. It's a good question. Why did I join the police? I think that idea of having a job where it's different every day and I wasn't stuck at a desk, that appealed to me. I sort of had a few little jobs. I came back from art college and I was a youth worker, working outside just with disenfranchised youth, if you like, just kids on the street who didn't have jobs and stuff in their 18 to 21-ish age group. And my job was just to sort of engage them in things and keep them occupied and help them look for work. And
did you use your magic? Did you incorporate your magic?
Yeah, I did. I'd show them tricks, and we'd hire a minibus and we'd say, right, we'll go and do something. We'd just go and take them somewhere so they weren't just doing nothing. And it was sort of a funded thing. It was a funded job for a year, so I did that for a year, and it was just that's all I could do it for. And then I got a job as a car salesman for 1 day. I was a car salesman,
selling the thing.
I got the job instantly. I went and did the interview, showed the guy some tricks. He said, "You're amazing. You're great with people. You're great at talking." And then the next day I went. And he said, "You start tomorrow." And I came in and started, and he literally sort of gave me a load of pamphlets about all the cars. And then he said, "Right." So the next woman who comes in, the next person who comes in, it happened to be a woman. So the next person who comes in, I want you to go and try and sell them one of these cars. And this woman came in, and she was, I say old woman. I mean. Now, she was probably my age, but then she seemed like an old woman. And she came in, and I was trying to sell her this car, and she said, "I don't really want that, I can't afford it." And I said, "She can't afford it." He said, "Well, tell her about finance, try I just thought, I don't want to do. I didn't feel I was trying to make somebody do something they didn't want to do, and I thought,
advantage of someone really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are loads of great car salesmen out there who do but this just seemed to me like I was trying to. I thought I don't want to spend my rest of my life trying to make people make decisions they don't want to make.
Yeah.
I suppose I could have made them make decisions they do want to make, but I hadn't thought it through. So I literally that night, so there's the keys to the company car you've just given me. I hadn't even driven it. I said, I'll get the bus home. I don't want the job.
Yeah.
And then somebody suggested the police. A few police people suggested the police.
Why did they suggest the police?
I think they just thought, they knew I was quite fit and athletic then. I know it's hard to believe. I was into bodybuilding and weight training, and also they knew I had a personality that was good with people. And a few people thought you'd make a great policeman, And I thought, actually, yeah, that would be good, and I'd be changing the world. And so I joined the police, and there was lots of it I did enjoy. It's never the job you think it is, the police. It's a horrible job in lots of ways. It's a job that's about bad news. You're telling somebody somebody's died, or you're telling somebody the house has been burgled, or you're telling somebody they've been arrested. You are pretty much the man who gives bad news to people. You're not a popular guy, for whatever reason. You're somebody who's stopping them for speeding. You're the society's bad guy.
Yeah.
We need somebody to do the bad things. Police, you're the man who's doing it. So you're not liked, and yeah, it's a hard job, and there's a lot of bureaucracy and paperwork and rules and regulations, and also constantly whenever something's done that's done badly by police, which is done, they do things wrong, then it's jumped on and it's in the press and it's in the newspapers and you suffer from it even though you've never done anything wrong. So it's a hard job, but there were lots of times when I felt I'd done good things, and helped
catch
people.
Any bad guys?
Yeah, loads of. I mean, you're doing that all the time. You're arresting people. That's sort of the main thing. And of course, it depends on your definition of bad guys. People speeding in the cars, are they really bad guys? But when you talk to traffic officers who've picked up dead babies off the side of the road, that's why they're so passionate about the job, because they don't want to do that. They'd rather say, slow down. I don't want to be picking you off the road. And that's their passion. It's like, I want to save people's lives. And I know it sounds stupid, but when they see somebody doing 35, they think that's the thin end of the wedge to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of that, horrible stuff, and going and telling people have died, and catching baddies, and now and again, finding lost kids, which is lovely. The odd little bits of wonderful things that you get to do.
Did you ever try and bring your magic into it to kind of lighten it up? I had this image when you said about the police. I had this image of you putting handcuffs on someone with like sleight of hand.
Yes,
They don't even know.
No, I never did that. There was sort of. I mean, obviously, I couldn't. When it was the serious part of the job, I'd be criticised if I was doing stuff. But yeah, if we had kids that had been, come in and they'd lost their parents in the town, then I'd blow a balloon up and make a dog for them, or I'd show them a magic trick, vanish a handkerchief, or do something silly. And now and again, if we had regular sort of drunk and disorderly homeless guys they'd deliberately smash a window so they could spend a night in the cells, and now and again I'd show them a trick, and sometimes you could get people to relax and be friendly if you befriended them, and magic sometimes was a good way of just getting them on your side to realise that actually you're human. And so I did use it now and again, but not all the time. I wasn't. It's like, I wasn't the policeman with the red nose going, "I'm here, guys." But yeah, I did a bit.
Yeah, maybe you should have done that. They would have made a film about you. Robbie
Do you know what? There was one football match, Middlesbrough v Chelsea, and I was policing the match, and the inspector put me on the no man's area between the Chelsea fans and the Middlesbrough fans, and there was 3 police officers. There was an inspector and 2 police constables, me and another guy. And there was a time when the Chelsea fans were chanting at the Middlesbrough fans, and they're about 20 feet apart with 6-foot fence between them, mesh fence. And there was a time when I blew up a big balloon and made a balloon dog, and went and gave it to one of the Chelsea fans. Right? He was a big skinhead Chelsea fan.
Yeah.
And I said, "Little present for you." And they started waving it at the Middlesbrough fans, go, "Whoa, look what we've got," and chanting, and they thought it was funny. So
what
then
was the chant? We got a balloon dog.
It was chants, just football chants, but they were using that to goad them on.
Yeah.
So then I had to go and make one. I had to make sure I made them in the right colours for the team.
Yeah.
I'd go and make one for the Middlesbrough fans, and it became a bit of a joke between the fans of, and then they wanted hats making and balloon hats.
So really, you were inciting a riot with balloon animals?
No, I didn't. On the contrary, I calmed them down. I got I got a good thank you from the inspector for doing that. So, but now and again, silly things like that I do. And also in training, I can remember in police training, we used to do riot training, and I used to just crack jokes, and make silly things happen. I used to have a thing that made like a ratchet noise. And so we used to get things where we used to have to do exercises before we did riot training. I used to, when we did stretches, I used to do this ratchet noise as everybody was stretching, and just silly things, to deliberately try and make the instructor giggle. And he said, "That's you, isn't it, Arch?" I go, "Yeah, sorry." So yeah, I was a bit of probably an annoying joker at times, but yeah.
And you told me that you left the police because of a hearing condition. When you said that, I had another image of someone firing a gun close to your ear. Have I just been watching too much NCIS, or did that happen?
Not that romantic,
No.
unfortunately. No, just a thing. It's a thing called Meniere's disease, which is a hearing condition that can affect anybody. I think it can affect both ears. With me, it's just my left ear. So I got hearing loss, and I have a noise in my left-hand side most of the time. I told the instructor on the driving class, I said, "You're going to have to talk loud." He said, "Don't worry, I'll be talking loud." So, and then dizzy spells and stuff. And that eventually how I ended up leaving the police. Although I was thinking about leaving anyway. So it was like fortuitous that, I got this condition. So rather than just leave the police, I told them about my hearing problem and got medically retired, which meant I sort of left with a police pension rather than just, resigning from the job and my police pension having to wait. So that made it a little bit easier, sort of suddenly thinking I've got to live on what I earn from gigs, which wasn't, at the time, I was doing some gigs in the police, on weekends and things, but not earning a lot. And all of a sudden it was like, right, this is my living now.
Yeah.
So that was a big jump. That was after 10 years. I'd been in the police for 10 years then, so.
Okay, so you've been in the police 10 years, you leave with a medical pension.
Yeah.
So how do you make that kind of massive leap? Because it seems like you made a big jump from the world of art and design.
Yeah.
And you went through a few jobs and you got into the police. But going from the world of policeman into like full-time comedian, magician, that seems like jumping a chasm. What?
Yeah, but you know what? It wasn't really, because I was doing it when I was in the police. I was sort of performing. So I had experience on stage, had experience performing. I had a little bit of a background of people who knew me and would ring me up and say, "Oh, will you come and do a gig?" So I had a bit of that structure already in place. It was just suddenly I was doing it to a much greater extent. And I was very fortunate that as I packed in, a friend of mine who was also a magician and was also doing it a little bit sort of full-time, had heard from an agent who did holiday camps, funnily enough. And he said, "They're doing a showcase, do you want to come?" And I said, "Yeah, all right." So I went and did the show, and I had a little double act with this guy, a magic double act, that we only used to perform in magic convention competitions and things. It was a silly little thing called Archenian Smith, and it was a 1920s escape act, and he wanted us to audition. But it was just a 10-minute routine. So we went and auditioned it. And this agent said, "Well, it's really funny, it's good, but it's 10 minutes. If I hired you, you'd have to do 45 minutes to an hour each." And he said, "Do you do anything else?" And I had the props in my car. I said, "Well, I do a magic act, comedy magic act myself." He said, "Well, go and get it and do 15 minutes for me." And there was a little audience there, and there was all acts doing juggling and bits and bobs. And I went and got some stuff out of the car and put it on a table and did 15 minutes for it, and he loved it and said it's great. And he immediately got me a circuit for Haven holiday camps, which, they're not great gigs to do. They're hard work and they're not well paid.
But the gig's nonetheless.
A gig's a gig, and he got me a lot. He got me 170 gigs in that first year. But there were 170 gigs paying about 100 and something quid each. They weren't paying hundreds and hundreds.
But at least it was a regular income.
It was a regular income, and it was more important than any of that. It was a regular experience. It was just me going in front of an audience, a regular audience of anywhere between 50 people and 300 people, 5 or 6 nights a week, and I literally was on the road from sort of April right away through to December, just non-stop, and that was great, because I learned the most important thing that you need to learn as a comedian, which is not to be afraid of dying. Once you've learned that dying isn't actually, I don't mean physically dying, I mean dying on stage. Once you've learned that actually isn't that bad and it doesn't matter, once you've learned it doesn't matter, that's when you get confidence, because that's when you realize, actually, I'm not frightened of it. And once you're not frightened of it, they can see that you're not frightened of it. And if an audience can see you're not frightened, you look confident. You can't fake confidence. You can only look confident when you've got confidence. It's like I was talking to the driver, the instructor, and I said to him, you know, he's driving regularly and he's in races and stuff. I said it's a bit like those. They need to crash. They need to lose control of the car. They need to all of those things for them to happen, for them to not be frightened of going into a corner full tilt. And once they've not got that fear and they've learned what the car can do, they can drive with confidence. Yeah. I'm driving out there. I'm not confident because I don't know that actually if I slide off, I'm going to be all right. And if the car turns over, I'm going to be all right. It's all happened to them. So I learned that valuable lesson. That first year. And I didn't do it again. I then went on to doing different stuff. That's my ambulance just arrived.
Yeah. Do you still die on stage, or have you done so many gigs now that
you know what?
You know how to rescue gigs?
I don't want to sound big-headed, but I don't die on stage very much. Corporates now and again I do. Some corporate gigs that are just renowned for being horrible. You can talk to any comic and they'll say, there are certain corporates where you're just going to go in and they don't want to see you before you even start. But the regular gigs where the audience is wanting to come and see me, or comedy club gigs, or gigs where the audience are up for being entertained, I might have a hard night. I might have a night where I get tough spectators, but I don't really have those nights where, I walk off stage or I get booed off stage, or I walk off stage. In fact, I think I've been booed off stage once in my life.
Booed off?
Yeah, well to that extent, well, maybe not booed, but groans and boos, and to that extent where you just go, I'm going to finish early. I've had that once, and that was a long time ago, and I wouldn't do that now. I think if it happened now, it wouldn't bother me. I'd just carry on. I'd just say, enjoy yourselves. Fill your boots. I'm here till the end.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And when you're progressing through your career as a comedian and magician, and kind of going more full time, how did you choose what kind of magic you wanted to do? Because you've got lots of different types, right? You've got someone like Dynamo who does street magic. You've got someone like David Blaine who'll just do insane stunts, and then you've got Copperfield who makes people believe he's got magical powers. How do you actually decide? It's kind of like finding your voice, I guess. It
is just like a comic finding his voice. You're also finding your style. And I'm very keen that I wanted to be a comedy magician. So I don't want to. I've never ever wanted people to believe I've got real powers. So I would, I never want to be the sort of. I mean, David Blaine doesn't really get people to believe he's got real powers. I could never be a Darren Brown because I would always want to go for the laughs. So I'd lose that believability. Dynamo is street magic and it's TV magic. If I wanted to do what he was doing, I have to have a TV show of that style, and I haven't got that, and I'm not going to get it. I haven't got the look that nobody's going to pick me for the cool.
Aww.
It's
just
just
shades on.
Yeah, well,
they look cool.
No, it's just what it is. It's just I'm never going to be the guy that with the boxers and the good-looking girls sticking swords in it. It's I suit comedy magic, and so yeah, and I sort of know what works for me. I don't want to do cheesy magic, so I try and avoid magic that uses props that look like magic props.
Yeah.
That's sort of one of my rules. I don't have a lot of rules. I do a lot of mind-reading-y type effects where it looks like I'm reading people's minds, but I do it in a comedy way. I mean, one of the hardest things, if you're a comedy magician, one of the hardest things is to find the balance where you serve the magic. In other words, you're getting laughs and the audience are enjoying it and laughing, but they still appreciate that something mystical and magical has gone on, because sometimes the big challenge is sometimes that comedy removes the mystery, and you've got to be very careful that you can get laughs with the people that are on stage with that, and then the moment when you've got to make them realise, look, this has gone on, because I don't want to be a comedy magician that does bad magic. I love Tommy Cooper, but I didn't want to be Tommy Cooper.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be one of those comedy magicians who does great magic, but their comedy's just cheesy lines and not great comedy. So my thing was always, I want to do really strong comedy where the audience are laughing as much as they would if they saw a comedian. That's always difficult because there are moments when I have to come off the comedy for the magic. And I also wanted to be doing magic tricks that they would go away and go, I haven't got a clue how he did that. But I don't want them to think I'm real or there's anything going on. I just want them to be mystified, fooled, and entertained and laugh and just have a great time.
So with other magicians, like the type of magicians who do want people to think that they've got magical powers, do you have a certain disdain for them? Because I interviewed Penn and Teller last year, and I got the impression from them that they really don't like magicians who come across like, this is real powerful magic.
Yeah.
I'm a god.
you know what? I mean, Penn and Teller, especially Penn, have lots of strong opinions about magic, and most of them are right. I know what Penn means when he's got a disdain for those people who try and pretend they've got real powers. The main thing about me, I don't have disdain for them as such, I don't think, but I wonder what motivates somebody who does magic to want their audience to think they've got powers.
It's got to be ego. It's got to be.
Yeah, it comes down to it must be ego. You must really want people to think that you're more special than you are. I want them to think I'm funny, which is ego, and I want them to think I'm talented, which is ego. And I want all of those things. We all have ego if we're a performer, but there's something about wanting. It's almost like there's a little personality thing that's wrong with them, that they want people to think you really can do this.
A little disdain.
Yeah, but it's and that's very close to mediums, fake mediums. There's so many mediums out there who are claiming to contact the dead, and as magicians we all know what they're doing is fake, and we
they're
know
all knobheads.
they are, and I find that repulsive because then it's not just an ego thing of aren't I special? It's that plus. I'm going to take money, I'm going to take 100 quid or 200 quid off this old lady who's lost her husband and give her this false hope that the guy's still speaking to her, which sounds a bit weird because, I've got a religion, I've got a faith, but I wouldn't take money off people I'd have the same feelings about a TV evangelist who takes money off people. It's just there's something wrong about earning money from people's grief or earning money from, giving people a false anything, and trying to sell it as real. They're just snake oils. So they're horrible people.
Horrible people.
Horrible people. I'd love to name them, but they'd probably sue me. And they'd probably win. That's the ridiculous thing.
And it's getting back to Penn and Teller. Am I right in thinking that on their show Fool Us, you were the only magician to fool them?
No, definitely not. No, I was the first one to fool them.
The first one.
I was the first guy to fool them on their show, Fool Us, which what happened was they did a special first, which was I think a 1.5 hour special. Basically, it was a broadcast special to see whether the format would work. And there was 10 or 11 magicians on that. I can't really remember. And 2 of us fooled them. I was the first one, and a brilliant card magician called Ben Earl. Well, not just cards, close-up magician, fantastic. And he fooled them as well, just after me, literally, 10 or 15 minutes after me when we were filming. So yeah, my only claim to fame is possibly the first one. But then they then made a series about 4 or 5 months later. And I think in that series of maybe about 35, 40 magicians, I think 7 or 8 fooled them.
7 or 8. Was it a nerve-wracking experience for you? Because with something like this, I've got control. If I cock up, I know I can cut something out.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've got control. It's my thing. And with your shows, you must have a certain element of control. You know what's coming. You know what's happening. But with being on someone else's show and having a thought that millions of people on primetime TV are watching you, did that do anything inside? Were you more nervous?
Yeah. Do you know what? It was probably the most nerve-wracking thing I've done. And if I watch the clip, which is available on YouTube, it got taken off actually. It got up to about 2 million views, and then they decided to make the series in America, which they've just been doing. And so everybody who had it on YouTube got told they had to take it down by YouTube, by the company who make the program. But anyway, that's a sideline.
It's on there.
Yeah,
we'll put the link.
Put the link. It's on there again. But anyway, if you watch the clip of me doing it, and certainly people who know me, you can see that I'm actually nervous. Certainly at the start of the routine, I'm certainly not as relaxed as I would normally be. So if you watch the clip of me, for example, in Dave's One Night Stand, which is also available on YouTube, I'm much more relaxed on that. And there was 2 reasons, I think, why I was nervous. One of them was because it was TV, and that's going to be that. But I wasn't too worried. But it was it was effectively live because I knew that I'd just got one shot at it. It wasn't like I've done other TV since, and it's like, oh, can we film that again? And we'll do that. You can retake, and if the trick doesn't work, and you can rehearse it lots and lots in front of the people you're going to do it for. But it was TV, and it was effectively as live, even though it wasn't live. But the main thing was that I was performing it in front of 2 magicians whose sole aim was to try and work out how the trick was done. And
these are guys at the top of their game as well.
They're arguably 2 of the greatest working magicians in the world today. They're certainly up there in my top list of acts that I'd want to go and see. and do go and see whenever I'm in Vegas. But yeah, two of these top guys. And I've performed for magicians. I've performed at loads of magic conventions where magicians know how I do everything. So I wasn't bothered about that. But this was, two magicians who know how most tricks are done and have seen lots of magic and devised their own tricks that are, ingenious and fool people and fool me. Their bullet catch, I haven't got a clue. So
at one point, didn't you say that Teller, you could see Teller looking at your hands? Really
what happened was I came on and I was very nervous. So I decided I wasn't going to look at them. I thought, I can't look at them. To try and keep myself in my comfort zone, I thought I'll look at the audience because I'm used to looking at the audience, and I thought I'll see them reacting, I'll see them laughing, it'll be all right. So I went out, and they were sat right in the middle, Penn and Teller, in 2 seats. So I looked to the left, and then I looked up above their heads and looked across the audience behind, and then down to the right, and then I went up and across again, and I never looked at them until I felt relaxed, and that was after maybe I'd handed out 1 or 2 of the envelopes. I can't remember the moment. But I decided, I feel a little bit more relaxed now, I'm going to look. And I looked, I cracked the gag, and there was a pause where I could sort of look at the audience and relax. And Penn threw his head back and was laughing. I thought, great, Penn's laughing. Teller wasn't laughing at all. Teller was he was staring like that. He wasn't even looking at my eyes. He was looking at the envelopes in my hand, and he was just watching. That's
intense.
And I thought, he's just burning. It's a phrase we have in magic, that your hands are being burned by the eyes. They just won't let you go. And then suddenly I thought, I'm not looking again. so then I started looking at the audience again. But yeah, I was very nervous. Funnily enough, the prize was to go in Vegas and perform in their show at the Rio in Vegas.
How was that?
That was great. And I wasn't nervous at all, really, then. I sort of went out and I did 25 minutes, I think. And I had to do the trick that fooled them, plus some other stuff. They did their whole show first. And then I went out and performed, and that was great fun. Yeah,
is it quite different performing to an American audience compared to a British audience? A different reaction?
Do you know what it is?
More hooping, more cheering.
Yeah, American audiences start from a different place to an English audience. The thing is, with an English audience start with the impression of, unless they know who you are, unless they're like, a big, I don't know, they're a big fan of Ricky Gervais and they go to see him, they're going to love him from the day he walks on stage.
Yeah.
But if they go to see someone that they don't know, they start at that level of, you've got to impress me, prove to me that you're any good. And then if you are, it rises up and you get a great reaction at the end.
Yeah.
American audiences start the opposite. Higher. They start already thinking, this guy's going to entertain us, he's going to be great, he's been introduced. Well, you come on stage, they're there. And your job is to keep them there, or take them further up. And if they decide they're not, you will then lose them. So it's almost like polar opposites if you drew a graph. It's like, it's that or that. So yeah, and also, Penn and Teller's audience not only were American, and there was a lot of Brits there and holidaymakers, obviously, but potentially mostly American. The other thing is they're magic fans, which is great because some people don't like magic. That's a fact. And you're in a comedy club, you might have 25% of the audience who go, oh, a magician. So they're all magic fans and they're American, so they're a wonderful audience to perform to. They are great, and they've just seen Penn and Teller for an hour and a half or whatever.
They're already on a high. They're already up here.
Yeah, they're already up there. So I had a great time. I loved it. It was one of the highlights of my career, definitely.
And there was something that you said that really surprised me, and you said that you don't play a lot of comedy clubs. I think that's a real shame because I went to a really well-known comedy club just a couple of weeks ago in London.
Yeah.
And it was just like the same old. I was just, no one had anything new. It was like, three straight guys, one gay guy. You knew what was coming.
A woman, if you're lucky, sometimes they put a woman on.
Yeah, sometimes.
But not always. It tends to be very young male dominated.
Yeah,
definitely.
But because I knew this was coming up, I thought about you and I thought, do you know what? If there was like some kind of comedy magician on this lineup, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
There'd actually be something quite different.
Yeah.
And out of the box. So why don't you do comedy clubs? Is it personal preference or?
There's several reasons. I mean, one of the reasons is I live 250 miles away from London. Yeah. So there are comedy clubs around the country, but I'd have to travel to them all. Financially, by the time I travel to do a comedy club, it's not financially viable. The other thing is a lot of comedy clubs don't want special acts. Certain places like the Comedy Store, they're pretty much, they are about a man and a mic or a woman and a mic sometimes. But the Comedy Store wouldn't really be interested, I don't think, in booking them. I don't think Don wants, special acts. I don't think he wants ventriloquists or jugglers or comedy magicians, no matter how funny they are. Well, yeah, and it is changing a little bit. I mean, burlesque came along, and burlesque was a little bit more like variety. Suddenly there were people dancing and still comedy, but it was more about other stuff other than just the comedy. And then what's happened now is there's this sort of new variety type happening, and there are some shows happening now where they are, jugglers on stage and magicians and comedians and a mixture of burlesque acts and a mixture of things. I think that'll grow a little bit. I think that will grow. And I do the odd comedy club now and again. And there are, Pete Furman does a lot more comedy clubs than I do. Piff the Magic Dragon, John Vanderput, who's now living in Vegas, he used to do a lot of magic comedy clubs, sort of do magic in comedy clubs.
You can start your own club.
Yeah, I said we could do, but you know what? I'm not. I've got a very varied sort of pattern of work. I do a lot of comedy sort of gigs of my own, comedy magic gigs of my own, where people just book me because they know me and they ring me up and want me to go and do an event. Church gigs, charity gigs, magic conventions, magic societies want me to go and lecture for them, and that happens abroad. So I might go, to Europe or America and perform for a magic convention. So and then writing for TV, writing for Tim Vines, my best mate. So I write for him. I'm touring with Tim at the moment. So that's 2.5 months touring with him in theatres. So it's very varied what I do. I have and then I had 3 series of a kids show on CBBC. So it's varied. So I don't miss doing comedy clubs. I suppose if I didn't have enough work, then I'd probably think, do you know what? I'd love to do my own tour. I might eventually do my own tour just for a bit of a different dynamic. But I'm loving all the variation.
Yeah.
And that goes right back to, when at the beginning of my life, when I was saying I don't want a job where I'm just in one place doing one thing, the same thing. I like the variation.
And you mentioned Tim Fine. Just to go back to Tim. I know that you guys met. Was it part of an event at Butlins? And
it was.
You guys met. Was there like a gag that he did where you went, "That's the comedy partner for me"? Almost like a bromance for a moment.
Yeah.
Or
you know what? Like I mean, it's not really a comedy partner, but he'd get annoyed if we were called a double act, but because we're not. But do you know what? It was more just personality that clicked. What it was a Christian camp at a thing called Spring Harvest that happens at Butlins. And they're like thousands of magicians, Christians. Magicians, that would be horrible, wouldn't it? Christian magicians, ooh, even weirder. No, but about 8,000 Christians descend on Butlins and for a week, and they have meetings and sing praise songs and have preachers and everything else. But they also have a little sort of after-hours entertainment program going on. And they tend to book people, obviously, who are wholesome, but also sometimes people who are Christians. A lot of time, people who are Christians, just so that they don't, start swearing on stage and ever. And I was on the entertainment team this particular in '94, I think it was. I was still in the police at the time, and we were having a little meeting, and they said, "What do you do?" I said, "I do comedy and magic." And then Tim arrived late, and he was a young, he would have been in his late 20s then, I think. And he came and he said, "Oh, is this the entertainment team? I think I'm part of you." And everybody said, "What do you do?" And he said, "Oh, I'm a comedian." And everybody went, "Oh," like that, like it was some sort of competition. And he went, "Why?" And he looked down at me, and I'm 7 years older than him, so I was in my 30s. I looked at him and I said, "I do comedy." And he went, "All right," because he's a better comic than I am. I'd never claimed to be as good a comedian as he is, but I do magic.
Yeah.
But then we just hit it off. We just like hung out together for the whole. We were there for a week, I think. We hung out together for the whole week, and we kept in touch. And then he'd just gone full time. Then I think he was just. I don't know whether he'd just done Pebble Mill, which was a lunchtime thing. Then it was the first TV thing he'd done. But he was new to the circuit, and we just became best mates. And then when he started doing TV, because we had a similar sense of humour, he sort of said, "Will you be my writer?" And I just got roped into writing on TV for him, and...
Do you still write little gags for him now? Does he write stuff for you?
He writes stuff for me on the tour at the moment. There's gags that he's doing that I've written, not a lot, but, there's a fair few, and there's lots of bits that I'm doing in my act that throughout the tour he said, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" And we've tried it and it's worked. So yeah, we feed into each other's act a little bit, and then whenever he did, the main amount of writing I do is if he's got a TV project and he wants a writer on it, then he'll try and get me involved, and I'll work on that as a writer as well. So.
Do you ever get a little bit frustrated when you're on tour with him? Do you ever get a little bit frustrated when you're on tour with Tim, not being the headline act? Do you ever think, maybe if I opened Channel 5, the Spice Girls, I'd be the headliner right now?
Do you know what? I've toured with him now. I've been his support act for over 12 years. So when I first started, there was some of that.
Yeah.
Now I sort of, no, I love to see him do well, and I'm happy. And also the other thing is, I make a joke about me being the support act, and at the end of my little set in the show, I sing a song about, you know, the audience belonging to Tim, but just for a little bit they belong to me. You know that song? It's in a Steve Martin film, Tonight You Belong to Me. I sort of sing a comedy version of that song to the audience. And I make a joke about almost the bridesmaid, never the bride type thing. But it doesn't really bother me. You know, I have enough times now where I go out and I am the main act, if you like, that I can sort of cope with it. Yeah. It's good fun. And it's easier now. We have a tour manager, a guy called Andrew Jobbins. And that, when we used to tour, just the two of us, I felt a little bit like I was the dog's body and I was the guy who drove and helped load everything in and out of the van, and he was the star who signed the autographs and I put everything back in the car and drove away again.
Yeah.
It's not so much that now. I sort of sit in the back of the van and somebody else drives, and I feel more like an act than those days, for example. Yeah.
So it's more equal now.
Yeah, it's great. And like I say, he's my best mate, so I want him to do well and he wants me to do well. So.
Now, what's the blindfold routine? Briefly. I know it's your favourite trick. I was kind of hoping it involved a big-breasted assistant, disappearing clues.
Do you know what? I don't have any tricks that with a big. I'm probably the biggest breasted assistant that's in this show. But no, my blindfold routine is something. It's sort of my favourite routine to perform. I don't do it a lot because it's a 20-minute routine, and sometimes if I'm only doing half an hour, that's too long as one section. But it's basically just a routine where I get a man and woman to blindfold me, but the tape coins over my eyes and put a blindfold and more tape around my eyes, and then I ask people in the audience to draw pictures basically, and I tell them what they've drawn. And I love the routine, not really because of the trick, but I just love the interaction with the two people on stage. I normally get a couple and I play the girl off against the guy, so I flirt with the girl and I sort of diss the guy a little bit, and you know, I kiss his partner at one point. And so I just
she's got the blindfold on.
While she's checking the blindfold, funnily enough, yeah. So, that's, I say it's my favourite routine. My favourite routine's constantly changing, and whatever's new is always favourite-ish at the time, because I love that process of, you know, comics come up with material much quicker than magicians do, really, a lot of the time, because magicians have to get the trick right, and they have to get the comedy right, and then they have to work out how the comedy works within the trick, and the method and everything. So for me, a trick can take a year to the point where now it's finished. The baby's born, and you know, it goes in the case. I get it out and I do it, and I know how it is.
Is there a similar thing in the world of magic, like there is with comedy? Like you can't recreate someone's act, or is there much more of a loose kind of rule about?
It's looser in that you can do. Magic tricks get sold and get released, so people will release tricks on DVD, or they'll sell the props for a trick, and you can do them. And sometimes they'll release the routine, so people will buy the routine with the gags that come with the routine and do it as is. The successful guys don't do that. The successful guys will do tricks that already exist, perhaps, but they'll come up with their own presentation for them. And if you want to be successful and actually get anywhere, you sort of have to have an original presentation for a trick, but quite often the tricks are not original, and quite often there's bits of business that are generic that sort of, you know, float around between all magicians. Certain little gags, you know, like that have been around for 20 or 30 years, like, you know, blowing your nose on a hanky and you throw the hanky on the floor and it bounces because you've got a rubber ball in it.
Yeah.
And it's just a bit of business, and I used to do that years ago. I don't do it now, but there are certain things that are almost generic, accepted things, but it would be not accepted to steal somebody's routine that they haven't released and that is an original routine to them. And if you were doing somebody's routine that they had released and you were doing all of their released routines in a similar arena to them, it would probably be frowned upon. It's sort of, and certain people get certain tricks that they're known for doing. So if you started doing that trick, it's sort of, there are morals, but they're loose.
They're looser.
They're looser, yeah. They're not as loose as the old, you know, 1970s stand-up comedian days where everybody shared everybody's jokes, but they're not as tight as the modern sort of comedy circuit where, you know, anybody steals any tiny little thing. It's a bit of a muddy middle ground. somewhere closer towards the comedy circuit, but still got some of that old school left in it.
Yeah, well, take like Harry Blackstone's light bulb trick, for
Yes.
example. Could you recreate that in a way, or would that be a no-no? Is that his signature trick?
Harry Blackstone's light bulb thing is, I mean, it was closely guarded, really, the exact method of it. And there have, since he died, there have been people who've brought out versions of it. And there has been Hans Klock, who's a German illusionist. He's done a version of it, performed it on stage with the blessing of the Blackstone family, I believe.
So it's got proper written approval to go out.
Well, maybe not written, but certain verbal. I'm not really sure how it works, but like I say, it's a bit vague. I mean, Teller from Penn and Teller took a guy to court for pinching his classic rose routine that he does with Shadow, where he does shadows in front of a picture and in front of a rose, and things happen to the rose that he's doing to the picture, to the shadow. It's a beautiful routine. Teller's done it since before he was with Penn, so over 30 years he's been doing this routine. This guy recreated it and then tried to sell it, and thankfully Teller had enough money to take him to court and stop him from doing a lot of stuff. I think still certain things he can do, which was a bit annoying, but it's all very vague, unfortunately.
And just going back to the light bulb trick, I know that you told me that was your favourite. I know that's part of the reason why I mentioned it.
Yes.
Why was that your favourite trick? Why another magician?
Well, I think it was partly to do with the trick and partly to do with the moment and partly to do with Harry Blackstone Jr. It was my first ever magic convention, so obviously just the idea of being at a magic convention was very magical.
It's the first bit of magic you saw at a theatre?
Yeah, well, no, I'd seen magic before, but I'd never been at a magic convention, which is a weird thing. It's just like 100 magic dealers and a magic show that just every actor was a magician. But then Harry Blackstone Jr., he's a legend in the magic world. He was a legend. His father was a legend, Harry Blackstone Sr., who appeared with Laurel and Hardy in one of their movies and all sorts of stuff. And then he had this trick, and it was just Harry Blackstone Jr. had this fantastic booming voice. He had a great, he had a great physique. He was sort of tall, dark hair. He'd walk on stage and say, "Good evening," and he just had this great booming voice. And he sort of did this thing, and it was just a green light bulb. His wife walked on, he undone the bulb from the lamp, and it stayed lit, and it was sort of lighted green. And he walked into the audience and said, "Have a look at it." And they'd look at the light bulb, and it was just a light bulb. And then he'd hang it above their heads, and it would just float above their heads. And then he'd just take it, and he'd walk to somebody else and say, "Look at it," and they'd look at it, and he'd hold it above their head and leave go, and it would float in the audience. Then he went back on stage, and he said, and he'd say, I had a little hoop around, so whenever it floated, he'd put a hoop over it. He had this hoop over his head, and he said, "Oh, some of you didn't see it." He said, I'll let you see it, but promise you don't touch. And he let go of it, and it floated away from the stage, above the heads of the audience. Then when it got to one point, he went like this, and it floated across the audience, and then he went like this, and it floated back to him, it floated through the hoop, and he took it. It was just, it was magical. And I sort of know how he did it.
Yeah.
But
There's got to be string somewhere, right?
strings, mirrors, animals, magnets, geese. Certainly something did it, but
one big goose.
one big goose. I think it was probably a goose and an electromagnet.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you were in that theatre, you wouldn't have known how it was done.
No.
You could, all your theories you had, you could look and not see any of your theories. It was impossible to fathom. That's probably my favourite magical moment. I had one other recently when I saw a French magician called Jan Frisch doing a close-up thing, and he did this piece of close-up magic with a little red ball and a teapot and a mug, and it's almost like juggling, but it was I can't describe it. If you, his name's spelled, I think it's spelled YANNFRISCH. I think Jan Frisch. Mm-hmm. Go and look him up on YouTube, and he does this little routine, and it's just beautiful and it's phenomenal. And he doesn't speak, and he's like slightly mad, almost autistic, savanty type character. And it's just beautiful to watch. And that was another moment where I watched this guy do it and immediately just stood up. And I don't give standing ovations very often, but I did for him. It was one of the times when I stood up without waiting to see if anybody else stood up. I just stood up, and it was phenomenal.
Have you ever walked out on a magic act before? Have you ever kind of seen anything? And
yeah.
loads.
Yeah. There's unfortunately there's a lot of bad. The problem with magic is it's it's easy to do some magic. Magic's not as difficult. Some magic is very, very difficult, don't get me wrong, but it's also very easy to do simple magic and fool people with easy stuff, but still not make it entertaining or fun, or just be an obnoxious so-and-so. And yeah, all the time, magic conventions, maybe not on the big theatre stores, but you see guys doing stuff and you just go, oh, it's terrible. Or magic comedy nights where you just see some guys and you just go, you haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
But I don't walk out, really. I wouldn't do that. And, I try and encourage them if they spoke to me. But yeah, there's a lot of magic around that's bad.
Do you ever take them to one side and say, "Oh, that was bad.
No,
You need to change"?
If somebody asked me and I thought it was bad, but I don't think I'd go and tell them without being asked. It's not my job to go and rain on people's parade, is it? But yeah, if somebody asked me for their opinion, I'd try and be honest. I can remember. I don't know if you ever remember a guy called Ali Bongo.
No.
Ali Bongo was he was like magic consultant for David Nixon. He was magic consultant for Paul Daniels. He used to appear on kids' magic shows, and he did like a shriek of Arabic, the shriek of Arabic, I think he was called. And he was a genius with magic props and ideas and everything. He was very creative. And he used to watch me when I appeared in magic convention competitions and things. And afterwards, he'd come up to me and he'd say, "Yeah, you did this wrong," or "You shouldn't have done that. You should try doing that." And I can remember once I did a show I think it was at the Magic Circle, and I came off stage and I walked up to Ali and I said, "Come on then, tell me what I did wrong." And he went, "You didn't do anything wrong this time. It was perfect."
You nailed it.
And that was, for me, it just meant so much. So I know how much it means for people to get feedback from people who respect, but I'd want them to ask for it, and I'd want them I would think if they asked, they'd probably respect me anyway to ask for the advice. But yeah, you've got to be careful with it.
Yeah, and on one of your career highlights as well, I know you just mentioned Magic Circle. You won a very big Magic Circle competition.
Yeah, I won the Magic Circle Stage Magician of the Year, which is it's a competition that's held every 2 years, and it's for stage magicians. I won it in 2009, I think it was. So I'm no longer the reigning champion. I think the reigning champion is a guy called Richard Pinner at the moment, and that'll change in a year or two's time. But yeah, that was a special thing. I mean, the judges were John Fisher, who was Paul Daniels' magic producer. Claude Perry, is it Claude Perry? I might have got the first name wrong. It might not be Claude Perry. Anyway, Perry, the guy who wrote Dad's Army, one of the guys who wrote Dad's Army, and then a guy called Duncan Triller, who runs a magic website, sort of information website thing. Who's a great magician. So I really respected these three judges, and then when I won it as well, it was just phenomenal. And I didn't think I'd win it. Really, I was doing comedy magic, and there was people doing really great, serious, proper magic. Yeah. But yeah.
Cool. And just want to go back to your religious side for a second. I know that you mentioned that you met him at a Christian convention at the Butlins. We interviewed Milton Jones last year. And Milton Jones has a very big frustration on the circuit. And what he said was that it seems like every new comic either has a bit about being an atheist, how great it is to be an atheist, or a bit slagging off Christians. Do you share that kind of frustration?
Yeah.
Does that make you angry?
It doesn't make me angry. It is frustrating, but it's understandable. I mean, if somebody's an atheist, I suppose they've got as much right to get up and shout about being an atheist as I have about being a Christian. I suppose the slight difference is I don't get up and shout about being a Christian in my stage act unless I'm booked by a church who wants me to talk about being a Christian.
Is that because it would be considered to be uncool? Is it just like too...
Well, I don't think my audience would like it. I don't think my audience would like it if I started, using the time I've been given on stage to entertain them to preach to them. I think if that's what they've come to see and they know that's what they've come to see, then I think it's a different kettle of fish. But I think it's the same that if you've paid to see somebody entertain you and they get up and then start preaching atheism to you, I think it's as bad as me getting up and preaching Christianity to them in a comedy club where it's not been invited. And I wouldn't do it. So it is a bit annoying. And then the fact that their prime target tends to be Christianity, I think that's because we're the easiest target, to be honest. They know we're going to forgive them. Less so than some other religions who might decide they're going to take it on their own backs to have a go back. I think it's understandable that Christianity gets picked on. And why atheists decide, I think atheists, not all, I know some really great, I've got good friends who are atheists and know I've got a faith, and we
Penn
go.
and Teller, massive atheists.
Yeah, and Penn and Teller have got respect for me, and I think they both know that I've got a faith, but you know, they've never made me suffer for it, and they've never really brought it up and you know, had a go at me about it. Darren Brown, you know, he's a well-known atheist, but got a lot of respect for me, and it's always been lovely to me. So, yeah, but there are some angry atheists who want they use their atheism to get at other religions, and that's, I don't know.
I mean, crap, isn't it?
Well, it is a little bit, but there again, I suppose there are Christians who've done a similar thing and had a pop at atheists. You know, I mean, it's all, you know, not, you know, there are bad guys in every camp.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sort of point too many fingers, because they could point fingers at some horrible Christian, you know, leaders of Christian churches who have some horrible beliefs, and you know.
And with your faith, and with going out on the road, being on tour, how do you juggle all of that with your family life? See, you got 3 kids, right? You got a family.
Yeah, it is a juggle, and it's hard work. But I mean, my kids are grown up now, so it's not so much of a problem. But that creates another problem in that my wife hasn't got kids at home to keep her company, so she's at home on her own.
Do you ever take her on tour as well?
Do you know what? It's not. People say that, but she's got a job. Plus, she wouldn't enjoy watching me do my act over and over again, and you know, staying in travel lodges and Premier Inns, and you know, it's not a glamorous lifestyle. Now and again, she'll come on the tour with Tim. She's come and stayed in some nice hotels because Tim's paying, and she's come and seen me in a couple of things. And now and again, if I get, you know, a few nice gigs that she might want to come along to, but yeah, by and large, it's just not practical. It's the nature of being in show business that you travel a lot until you get really, really, really famous, and then you don't have to. You can just pick and choose, and you know.
Yeah. How do you keep the relationship alive? Do you have like scheduled date nights? Are you?
No, I'm hopeless at all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when I've been away a lot, I do get guilty, and I say, look, we must do this when I get home. And but yeah, I mean, I'm not the guy to ask of, you know, how to make a relationship work, because I'm hopeless at it, really. I try my best, and I get home and I buy her flowers and I say, come on, let's go out for a meal now and again. But I don't do it as much as I should, or as often as I should, but which is the same thing, isn't it, I suppose? Yeah. But yeah, it is a juggle. Thankfully, we've got good friends who make sure, you know, they're she's looked after now, and you know, visit and invite her around when I'm not there, which is what she needs, you know, so she's not sat at home, you know,
Twiddling her thumbs,
thinking he's out, you know, partying somewhere.
Yeah.
Or he's at Brands Hatch driving fast. When I told her about this, she went, "Oh, great, what a hard life you have." Yeah, so.
And have you had many occasions where your tricks have gone disastrously, really badly wrong?
Not disastrously wrong.
That's the word I was trying to say.
Yeah. I've had a moment where I cut my finger up really badly using a pair of scissors just to cut a piece of rope. And I was bleeding everywhere, and I couldn't stop it. And literally somebody had to come on and stop the show and bandage me up and carry on. And then I've had tricks where I've just got things wrong. You know, I've tried to reach somebody's mind, and it's like, are you thinking of this? No, I'm not. But
what do you do? Just cover up with a gag?
Yeah, I mean, you deal with it as how it requires, really. It's sort of, you know, sometimes you can make a joke of it. Sometimes you have an out. In other words, you have a way of making it look like the trick hadn't gone wrong because you do something else and then it has worked. And sometimes you just fall on your sword and say, I'm sorry, that's gone wrong. It doesn't happen very, very much now. On this tour, I've got a card trick where...
Have you got any tricks you can show us?
Yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you something. But on this tour, I've got a card trick where there's quite a bit going on, and there's a couple of twice out of 40-something gigs so far where I've had to... The audience haven't known it's gone wrong, but I've had to suddenly start readjusting and try and make things work. But yeah, you want to see a trick?
I want to see a trick.
All right, I'll tell you what. I'll show you. I'll show you one of my favourite ones. And you know, some magicians hate this trick, and some love it.
Hate this trick?
Well, because it's ridiculous in that it uses 2 elastic bands, and also it's a popular trick and a lot of people do it. But I like it. I've got one too many elastic bands.
Cameraman, can you pick this up? You got this?
Get nice and close, cameraman. We should learn the cameraman's name, shouldn't we?
We should have. Phil. It's Phil.
Hey, Phil.
Phil.
No, it uses 2 elastic bands. All right. I call this the world famous elastic band trick because it uses 2 world famous elastic bands.
Yep.
I say 2. This one's world famous. He's only been around Europe
Oh,
He's replacing the elastic band that snapped last week in a tragic elastic band accident.
sounds very tragic.
Yeah, I write all of this myself. Yeah. Anyway, the idea is I'm going to put one elastic band behind the other like this. I'm now trapped in what we would call a pair of crazy man's handcuffs. In fact, that's what the trick was called for a long time.
Okay.
Crazy man's handcuffs. You see, I can't get out that way. Can't get out that way.
Yep.
And I can't get out that way. But if I rub the elastic bands together like this, what happens is they actually melt.
What?
Right through each other.
No, shut up. Do it again.
It's good, it's good, it's good. People often say that. People often say do it again. They say other things, but they often say do it again. I'll tell you what, I'll do it again, but this time I'll do it really slow. All right? And I will point a few things out. First thing I'll point out is people think that the elastic bands aren't behind each other.
Can I touch it?
Yeah, you can touch. Just check. There's just an elastic band.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you think is like press studs and Velcro in there.
Yeah, something.
Yeah. And the other thing people think is they're not behind each other to start with, but they really are.
That really is.
They're really behind. You see, if they weren't behind each other, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be able to do this. Wouldn't be able to do this.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be able to do this. But we just rub, and they come right.
Oh, it's genius.
I'll do it one more time. You can hold one of the elastic bands.
Okay, let's do it.
Both hands.
Both hands.
Okay.
My mind is.
Now lock it on.
Now.
That
Okay,
way, there's no. People think I can sneak it off. Hold it about that far apart.
That is properly locked.
It's properly locked. So there really is no way out. Can you feel that?
Yeah.
Can you feel that?
Yeah.
You're feeling very well. That's a joke. That's an old one. That's one of the ones I told you about. Dubious background.
What?
Can't get out this way. Can't get out this way. Can't get out this way. But watch.
What is going on?
It's good, isn't it?
That is good.
Yeah, I don't know why people don't like that trick. It's one of my favourites. And also,
It messes with their head.
it's very easy to carry around. It's like 2 elastic bands, 3 elastic bands. I don't know why I brought one out in case I got a snapped elastic
Just
band.
in case.
And I'll tell you what I will show you. Do you remember? Sorry, I'll just put those back on the point. Do you remember I said when I first started magic, I went to Alan Allen's magic shop?
Yeah.
And he sold me a card trick.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you the card trick he sold me.
Okay. These are the original cards.
No. They're not the original cards. The original cards are well worn out now.
Okay.
In fact, I get through these quite a lot. It's called a packet trick because he uses a packet of cards and they're all the same. They're all the 8 of clubs.
Yeah.
You've got to watch carefully. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the 8 of clubs and turn it face down like this.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to give the cards a little shake. What happens is another 8 turns face down like that. And then if I give them another little shake like that, hopefully all of the 8s have turned face down.
Yeah. Whoa.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again. Watch. I'm going to take one of the 8s out like this. I'm going to turn it face up.
Yeah, that's
Give the cards a little shake. Now the bottom one turns face up. Give them another shake. And now all of the cards
They're all
turn face up. I'll do it one more time because I can see you're impressed by the way you're yawning. Watch. One card face down on top. Give the cards a little shake. The bottom card face down. Give them another shake. And now all of the cards turn face down. Now at this point, people think I'm using an extra card.
Yeah.
And I do. I use one extra card, but I'm going to make it vanish in an amazing way I learned when I was 5 years old. Watch.
Okay.
1, oh, it's got dirt on my card. 2, it'll vanish. 3, and it's gone. It's not very good, is it? I was 5 when I learned how to do that. My mum used to say you put it in your back pocket, but I haven't. Look, we look down. I haven't put it in my back pocket. What happens is that card comes back in the middle of the packet, face up. In fact, if I could push it in and give them a shake like that, we should now have 2 cards face up and only 2 cards face down. In fact, if I give them another little shake like this, we should now have 3 cards face up and only 1 card face down. And that card has turned a funny colour. You can hold that.
That is incredible.
Which leaves me, we're not done, leaves me with 3 8s and another one turns face down, and that too has gone a funny colour. And if you didn't see that and you didn't see that, the chances are that you didn't see that.
Hey, get out of it. That's amazing.
Boom!
How does someone book you, or can you only be famous to book you? Durham Brown booked you, right, for his dad's 70th?
Yeah. Normally people book me, well, it depends what they want to book me for. If it's a charity type thing, then they book direct because my agent's not interested. But normally, my website's got a link for my agent, so it's just john-archer.com. And for corporates, talk to my agent. If it's a charity gig and you've not got much money, talk to me, and then I'll say no instead.
And you got any other tours coming up? What's in the pipeline for you?
Do you know what? I sort of touring with Tim, and then it's mainly just a lot of gigs on my own, really. I'm going to America in October, doing a magic convention out there. Going to Italy in a couple of weeks to do something out there. So yeah, just ducking and diving, waiting to find out whether or not we've got another series of the kids show, but I've got a feeling it might not happen. Who knows? They say yeses come quickly in television, no's take longer.
Yeah.
And it's been a while, so they might be deciding on a no.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of stuff really. And pitching things, working on sitcom ideas. I'd love to do a sitcom. So yeah, just what every act out there is doing, of trying to get themselves more known, trying to get themselves on telly, just anything and everything.
Well, John, thank you so much.
Book me. I'm not desperate. Book me.
Book him. Yeah, and thank you so much for coming, for driving the car and melting my head with magic.
Thank you for letting me. Brands Hatch. Thank you, Brands Hatch. Absolutely fantastic experience. Get yourselves on it. What was it called? The M4 experience.
The M4
Yeah,
experience?
the M4 experience. Unbelievable.